Hi guys and welcome. If you want to ask a question, then you have to call me through Skype. My Skype is LisaCairns12. I'm aware that Europe's just been through a time zone change, so for people outside of Europe, it might be confusing as to what time the talks are. So the talks are on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Dutch time, and on Sunday 6 p.m. Dutch time. We're taught in Western society, just a second. Bad lighting, bad angles. If I have the camera too low, I look like I've got gigantic breasts. It's like all breast if you have it too low. So I have to make sure it's up at my face level. So most people in Western countries are taught from a very young age that they have to be happy. And the way that they're happy is through achievement, is through getting things and through money and being someone with things. What did that monkey steal? What a monkey! Where's a puppy poop? She stole her bone off the worktop. What a monkey. Easy. I've been very busy today and I haven't had loads of times for Khaleesi, so she's now like... So in our society, we are taught that achievement and getting things are happiness. And actually, from a psychological standpoint, this isn't talking about non-duality, but just talking about the working of the brain and the pleasure system. That is not the way to get maximum amount of pleasure. That's nothing to do with non-duality. I'm talking within the dream. Striving to get more isn't what will give you pleasure. In the long run, this will actually give you less pleasure. Because the brain will get addicted to the highs needed from attainment. So it will then always be on this attainment wheel of needing to get more and more, and each time it does, it will get less of a high. It will get less of a pleasure release. And it only lasts for a very short period of time. They say that people that win the lottery are happier for only 1 year, and then after that 1 year, most people become less happy than they were originally before. But in our society, winning the lottery is held as a great thing, and it will be the end to all of your problems. And I think that everyone believes that if they won the lottery and had more money, they would be more happy. But that's because we don't understand what happiness is. And we don't understand the setup, the body-mind mechanism. So in our body-mind mechanism, we have emotions and we have feelings, and all of them are on a pleasure-pain scale. And basically it's all chemical reactions happening, even the emotions. So there is an input, so something's touched or felt, and then there's a chemical release that gives a feeling of happiness, which is pleasure, or sadness, which is pain. And it always works on this scale. And they come in slightly different variations and different colours. And they're always fleeting. And it works with this pleasure-pain measurement, and these sensations and feelings and reactions work in relationship to other objects. So when Lisa drinks tea, there is a sensation of pleasure. When I have to pick up the dead dog poo and it's really smelly, there is a sensation of pain. In our society, we base happiness on the attainment of pleasure, and we think that happiness is the sensation of pleasure. It's the happiness or the joy that comes when we have a chemical reaction of pleasure. So with happiness, laughter, joy, elation, excitement, that all of that is happiness or is freedom. And that's the good side. And then the bad side, and what wants to be avoided, is sadness, depression, fear, anxiety, worry. And we live in this world where things, external objects, bring us pleasure, and external objects bring us pain. And we live in a society that's always trying to line up all the objects to bring us pleasure. So we think, and we're taught, that money is pleasure, friendship is pleasure, success is pleasure, obtaining things like nice cups. I think this is a really cute cup. It's like a fake takeaway cup. That looking pretty is pleasure, doing our nails is pleasure. And this pleasure is happiness. And a happy person and a happy life is somebody that has managed to get the most amount of pleasure possible. It's the way that all animals work. So at the moment I've just brought Khaleesi 2 companions. I just bought her 2 rabbits, and I bought Lisa 2 rabbits. So when I look at the rabbits and I look at Khaleesi, they're based on the same system. Their body is attracted towards pleasure and trying to avoid pain. And each body is very specifically lined up to have particular reactions to objects. So to the rabbits, pleasure is eating. They like their little dens. They like relaxing and running around in circles for some reason. If you put something in the middle of the room, they love to run around it and they kick their back legs out. And they like to snuggle in together. These are things that are pleasure. What is pain for them is if you move too quickly. So if I or something moves too quickly, then they have the fear, flight. I think it's painful for them to be picked up or not treated like a rabbit. So they like to be cuddled, but not to be pulled around. Loud noises, I think, is painful for them. A lack of food, they have to eat so much. For Khaleesi, she's more complicated. The rabbits are a little bit stupid. So she has more pain and pleasure things. To her, some dogs are very pleasurable, other dogs are very painful. For her, I think the rabbits are pleasurable, but I think when they move really quickly, it's painful for her. Because I think her instinct would be to kill it, but she's confused. So you can see her like, when they're moving too quickly, like her instinct is to chase it, but she knows she's not allowed to. For me, or for Lisa, pleasure is TV. Good TV, though. I like well-written TV. Pleasure is being creative. Eating. Sex. Not all the time sex, but a lot of the time sex. Tea. Talking about non-duality. Pain for me is a lot of interactions with humans. I find social interactions half and half. I'm so sensitive to people that I can tell when they're not being honest, which is, in human case, 95% of the time, but they're not even aware of it. But as soon as somebody's not being honest, this body can feel it, and then I either confront it or I lie and agree. And neither of them are very pleasurable things to do. You confront it and the person's not aware that they're lying, so then you have to really go through it with them. or you lie and it doesn't feel very good either, because then the body's saying something that it doesn't mean, which never feels good. But people aren't even aware of the lies that they're telling themselves. And the biggest lie there is that they exist. So you can imagine my interaction with humans isn't the most pleasurable thing. I also don't like being too cold or too hot. I don't like being really hungry. Don't like hurting myself, like falling off the bike. And on and on. I love the sunshine, the clouds, sensations of things. So this is what the bodies are set up to do, and it's really crazy that most humans don't know that that's how the body-mind mechanism functions. There is no personal part to it. These preferences are genetic and conditioned. A lot more are genetic than you would have thought. So it's a combination of genetics and conditioned. And that's it. That's how these body-mind mechanisms work. They get a bit more complicated because you also then have memories and stories and things that bring pleasure and pain and social interactions, but it's just based on that phenomenon, to pleasure or pain. And then what we have formed also in the human, or what forms in most humans at a very young age, is the sense that that functioning is you. Those reactions are you. And that pleasure is your happiness and what you should have, and pain is your unhappiness. But actually, all the suffering doesn't come from the movement between pain and pleasure. And science even says that. I mean, if you win the statistics of happiness, that people that win the lottery, it barely makes any difference. Only for 1 year it makes a difference, and then after that it mostly makes people more unhappy. So what actually is the suffering of the human is this energy which claims that to be you. If that separation isn't there, everything is 100% complete. The movement between the pain and the pleasure. Everything. You could be bankrupt and being put into prison. There's total completion. But it's not your completion. It's nothing to do with you, because there's never been a you there. There is chemical reactions happening. There is life happening, but for no one. We get so complicated as a human, though. And the conscious mind sews together all these reactions and sensations and feelings and memories and ideas, and puts it into stories about yourself. And then the human is constantly trying to convince the world that is who it is. And it always feels slightly on the run, uncomfortable, because as soon as the separation has happened, there's always a sense that you've lost it. You've been kicked out of something. There's a sense of discomfort that always is there, this agitation that something needs fixing. And it's so confusing because these pain reactions get so complicated. You feel jealous, the sensation of jealousy comes up, and then the story comes, they're bad people, I don't like them. And that's what the story tells. So there's a sensation of jealousy, but that is not in the conscious mind. What's in the conscious mind is they are bad people, I don't like them. And then when you're around those people, all you want to do is put them down and hurt them. And if they say to you, you're jealous, how dare you, I'm not jealous, I hate you. It becomes such a complicated affair, and that's just a really simplistic game that's being talked about. And the separate self is always lying to itself. It's always in a state of denial of what it is. When this hurts, it creates pain. It creates a sensation of pain. Because rather than just being expression happening, it's like this expression goes through something tight and small, something that contains it. Something that's always trying to present itself in a certain way. It's so greedy, the sense of self. Taking in, taking in, taking in. Always wanting to be better than others, better than what it is, better than the house, better than the partner they have. Nobody's really content with what they have. I don't know anyone was content outside of me and Paul, but anyone that has what they want. And I meet all sorts of people. I meet billionaires, famous actors, poor people, desperately poor people, homeless people. And none of them have what they want. They always feel like there's something that they did wrong, and they repeat. It's the partner. It's this decision. It's that decision. And they'll never find it. They'll never find it in any of the spiritual words of follow your heart. Or be true to yourself. They'll never find it in any of the objects you buy. All of that is fleeting. Everything. You'll never find it in any understanding, in any cup of tea. It's not in the tea. Or Khaleesi, or the bunnies. Nothing. And this has to be really seen, not by anybody. It's not nobody, it's not somebody seeing. But this can't be learnt. The person always thinks and will always believe it's in something else. It's in growth, it's in pleasure. It will always believe it's in the next thing. If my partner was better, if Lisa spoke more clearly, if I won the lottery, if I paid off my mortgage. If I find a group of friends, if I find a partner, if I have enough sex. And I'm not saying don't do all of this. In a way, it's got to be done to see it's not it. It's got to be tried. But maybe not, it doesn't have to be anyway. But this character went and tried. This character's obsession was peace in the world. I was trying to save the animals mostly. And I did it. I went and laid outside, what do you call it, like testing units, laboratories. I went on protests. I went and worked in a war zone. I got held up by gunpoint. I laid in front of bulldozers in the West Bank. I choked on tear gas again and again and again. If you've ever protested, you'll know what that's like. I laid behind cars as bullets went over them. And I saw they can never be found in peace in the world. I realised it was so beautiful, but this is all to do with the person. I realised that you couldn't make people be peaceful. And when they believed they were someone, in a way they were always at war. I realised when I was in the West Bank, Jesus, this can be politically taken so badly, that if you gave the Palestinians the power, the same thing would happen again, just like the Holocaust and now what Israelis were doing to the Palestinians. The Israelis had been through a terrible incident, and so they became the perpetrator. And the same would happen if you gave the Palestinians the power. Not that I'm saying you should or shouldn't in either case. I was gobsmacked at how complicated it was. But the mentality of the human, when it's separate, is always to be greedy. And it's always, in a way, prone to hate, because it always feels incomplete. And it always believes it's the other's fault, or my fault. It's not that it's happening, And it's nobody's fault. It's always mine or their fault. There's always war there. Nothing can ever be found in the world. It fleets, it moves. And it's everything. It's all opposites. It's heaven and hell. It's beauty and ugliness. And as soon as you found the greatest pleasure there is, like say you became the CEO of the company you'd always wanted, it will change again. You'll want something else, or that won't be enough anymore, or you'll feel bored that you've achieved it. There will be a different sensation that comes. You will never get there. Maybe you just keep dreaming that when you pay your mortgage off, or if you manage to give up your job and go to Thailand, or if you are more courageous. But it can't be got in the world. There's nothing here, it's an empty world. I don't mean empty in a negative way, I mean that it's all full of nothing. It's like a magic trick, and the humans are so hypnotized by it. You think, so say just use this as money. You think if you get it, this will give you something, but you can't. You can't penetrate it in the physical form. It can't do anything for you. Even if you pay off your mortgage and you're debt free, what difference does it make right here? You think it will stop the craziness or the discomfort, but it won't. The person will fixate on another problem. You can't get it. You cannot get it. Everything changes. Look. Everything changes. Constantly. There is nothing that you can get. And that is where God lies. Is where it lies. That is the freedom. There is nothing that you can get. And because everything changes, there is no solid you. There is no you versus the world. Everything is changing. The constant is. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I'm out of tea already. You won't ever get there. You ever think that, if your boyfriend changed or if your life situation changed, if you didn't do this or didn't do that, that you would get there, but you won't. You'll never get there. When it's really seen, there's never been anything else than this. And there's never been anywhere to get to. The human is so fooled by the chemicals. There's not even someone there that's fooled, actually. Just the game that's happening in the human is these chemicals, and then these feelings and pleasure and pain, and then something says, that's me, and I need to be happy, and why aren't I happy, and I need to choose correctly. How could someone ever choose if everything is changing constantly? How could there be a fixed you that chooses? There is nothing that can choose. There is simply everything, and there lies heaven. And this is happening, this is moving, and it's not moving. And it's all coming from no place, it's not coming from the past. It's so empty, so free. Okay, we take the questions. But I am tempted to go and make myself a cup of tea. It really might make me happier if I make myself a cup of tea. Oh dear. Hi, Lango. Okay, so we start with Jessie. Oh, I think Jesse's gone to make himself a cup of tea. Okay, we'll move on. Oh, hey, Jesse.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey.
Oh, there you are. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, really well.
Oh, good. A different computer.
Oh, you're all packed. I can see all the boxes behind you.
Yeah, it's moving along. I had a couple questions for you, and I had to write them down because otherwise I'll forget what I wanted to say. Anyway, we were watching the video of you walking beside the river in England. You know the one I'm talking about? You're walking beside the river and talking about how beautiful the English countryside is. And
Yeah.
it had been a few years ago. Anyway.
Yeah, I only remember it because I recently saw it on Facebook that somebody had posted. I didn't even know that was on there. I don't even know if I meant it to go on there. It just went on there because it was attached to my phone.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I said.
I'm glad it did. It's really kind of like a desert island. 5 minutes. It's really all you'd ever need.
Oh, nice.
Anyhow, anyway, in that video and other times, I hear you say that, especially in the video, you said it's so simple that this comes not from the past but from nothingness.
Yeah.
And this no thing. I mean, I know it's impossible to express that, but I think I've heard you say that it's potentiality.
Yeah.
Does that feel right? Yeah, more than say like a blank slate of just nothingness. It's
yeah.
Okay.
And it's totally unseeable in the world of things. So it's not anything that can be seen or perceived in any way, but it just becomes so apparent, but not in the imagining way. It's like there is this deep emptiness and silence that all of this is and is coming from and in, and it's so vast and empty. Like everything is so empty. Paul, it's quite funny actually because Paul calls it full. So he says it as full, but it's like It's just, I say it as empty because full is. The full is. This is so, the full, the this comes from absolute stillness. And that is the source of everything. The human is petrified of this because it thinks it dies there. And it does, in a way. And it like, I even remember as a kid having paranoia that, or fear at night, that I would disappear and die. And I felt like it was something that I had to hide from or run away from when I was a kid. Like I used to get it when I was at night or alone. And there's nothing to... Non-existence isn't anything to be afraid of because everything, every part of existence is built on it. And I was so afraid of it because I knew really, for this illusory person, it was death. But everything comes from that non-existence, and it's actually like the most intimate sense there is. So we fear not being. We fear something happening to us in this world of movement because we believe we are something in this world of movement. And obviously the body's got to naturally have fear. The body comes with that, but I'm talking about the separate self. But fear's going to non-existence. But if it could see that the whole world is made of non-existence, then there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. The body's got to respond with fear, just like the rabbits that I've just bought. If you walk too quickly, you see them like, boom, like fish, like, so the body has to have that chemical reaction. But I'm talking about the more existential fear, the fear of the separate self that fears dying, not the instant fear, the person that fears dying. It's that person that's created all the suffering and discomfort because it's always felt like it needs to find completion, which is that non-existence, but it runs from that non-existence. The emptiness is such a celebration. It's so free and at peace. I don't mean a peace in like a feeling, but I mean a peace that's like, it's beyond anything in this world. It's not a sensation. But there's nothing that's... Oh, it's so beautiful. Just talking about it is like... It's so vast. And there's no end to the emptiness. In the world of forms, there's always an end, an apparent end. But in the emptiness, everything is that emptiness. And it's so vast and huge. It's like a big ocean. Everything is contained in that emptiness. But it's so beyond the personal experience. The personal experience is always this and that. But everything knows it because everything is it. But it's not intellectual at all. And this is where you were asking recently about resonance, I think it was you. And this is, I suppose, where the resonance comes from, this part of it. Like this is known. This is, this freedom, this vastness, this absolute full stop emptiness is known by every cell there is, every particle, everything that appears is made of that. It's not intellectual, it's not feeling wise, all of that is appearing in it. It's known because it is the source of everything. Well, that was beautiful.
Well, in the other night, I was talking to Laura, just having a normal conversation, and all of a sudden, the I that I was using to express myself, it sort of almost like popped out to the side, and it became this. What did I say about it? It became sort of an unattached energy that had a function, and that function was to represent the brain and memories and experiences and perceptions and so on.
Yeah.
While the reality was actually this endless no thing.
Yeah.
So, and I guess I kind of think it's just an experience or something, but it's
Yeah.
really
In a way, it is an experience because it's something you can think about now, but it's like that is life revealing itself again. But it becomes an experience once it's thought about. Like that is the way it is. Like as soon as we interpret it, it's then into experience, which is nothing wrong with interpreting it like that. And that's where that character I comes from. It has to be able to report and talk about all these things. But that vastness is, and that lake that you felt like appeared, or that vastness that appeared, always is. It's just that I is kind of making it feel small and narrow. And that vastness is what makes everything. And then that's where the non-separation is, because that vastness could never be contained inside of this body. It's everywhere, and everything is that vastness. It's just that vastness at the moment is experiencing through a body-mind mechanism, but not even really experiencing through a body-mind mechanism. It just seems that way. It doesn't need anything to experience through. It is. And isn't. Crazy.
I think about that all the time. Maybe it's not supposed to, but it does. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It's one of the things. It's like you're thinking of like who's actually listening. And when I'm talking to you, either in person or like this, it seems like what's hearing you is. Let's see, it's like it's indescribable, endless, but complete and without care.
Yeah.
Space
Yeah.
that is speaking to the same thing, and it sort of urges it forward, like it's blowing away everything else that's kind of in its way, and that's just kind of the flavor of it.
Yeah. And that's the nature of everything. It seems like I'm telling you it, but it's actually it telling itself. There's never been a you and a me here. It's kind of crazy the way it's playing. But that, I suppose, is why, like, a lot of the traditions, like, talk about what happens when non-duality is talked about, but it's nothing to do with us. It's not like you're resonating with me. It's just the way that it expresses itself. It's like it builds up all these layers of these games of life being really real, and then it expresses itself. It sort of emerges from that as if it's me talking about it and you listening, but it's really not like that. And it's so perfectly still. It's so still, life. That's its freedom. The emptiness and the form, the famous sutra that I like from the Buddhism, like really home in on that, on the emptiness and the form simultaneously. That it's all empty, not as an intellectual idea, not something as you can comprehend, like consciousness or awareness or anything like that, and it's not experiential as such, but yet it is like that. The nature which is expressing itself now, which is looking, which is being everything that's looked at, is, and it also is vastly empty and free at the same time. This world of beauty and horror has happened to nothing. It's always been free. If it was really, really happening, this would be a torturous world.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure, Jesse. That was really lovely for the Lisa character too. Yeah. Thanks, Jesse.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was lovely. Okay, I need to get a drink. If I'm going to talk this much, I need to get a drink. I have to be drinking a lot.
love. You're so beautiful.
There. Okay. Hey, Nima.
Hi Lisa, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Okay. I have a question. First, I want to say thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
This is from everybody, everyone from everywhere. So, when the bliss comes, I feel my brain is transforming, and I feel the brain is starting to change. It's like the bliss is the power to change everything. And I want to ask. I have two small questions. My first question is that is more bliss going to be more transformation for the body and the mind if I experience it more bliss, like the laughter, you remember, is that going to transform the body and the mind more to understand this non-duality in this physical world? This is my first question. Hello?
Yes, sometimes, it takes a moment.
Oh, okay, now it's okay? Okay.
Yeah, just takes a moment. Oh, I'm so froze, so you think I've gone. Here you
go. Okay.
Where would you like to go to? Like, what's your idea of non-duality, or where you're going to get to?
Okay, I felt that the nothingness is coming through the bliss, and the bliss is coming through the energy and the witness, and then all the layers, and then the physical. So the nothingness is the source of everything. But my brain and body are still somehow not understanding in the day-to-day life. For example, in the 24 hours, I'm not always, when I say I mean this physical is not always experiencing that non-duality. And when I go through a bliss time, in that time I feel there's a fire going through me and changes everything. And I want to know if that fire, it becomes more, it changes more. For example, I feel the body and mind for example, the question comes to my mind that the yoga practices, the meditation and the Kriya Yoga and all of these things talk about enlightenment, that when the Kundalini energy reaches to the 7th chakra. And I feel this is the end. I feel the Kundalini is nothing. The Kundalini is just observed. I can know this. But my body and my brain still look for something. So I want to give more bliss to them so that they stop talking. I know it. I know that it's not about anything. It's already there. This is the nothingness talking to nothingness about nothingness. Is my experience. But I want this brain to finish it. Because I see in the internet that the brain takes some time to transform. That's what I saw. And or maybe there's no need. I mean, I don't know. But it's not 24 hours. It,
Just give me a moment and then I'll reply. If this is all perfectly still, and the nature of everything is total stillness and non-time, and this doesn't come from the past, and it's not the person that wakes up, then how can anything be transformed? The energy in the brain is to keep processing in time and to keep looking in time. And that can carry on, and still total freedom can come forward. There can be bliss or pain, joy or agony, and still, this is so still.
they will change. True.
The person is always looking at itself through time, it's always looking at itself through this and that. And that's not the reality, that's just a functioning of a brain that's interpreting in a particular way. It's like the movement on a TV screen. It's trying to find itself in the movement of the TV screen. So it's trying to find itself in all the colours and the characters and all the dramas. And yet it's there all the time, perfectly still. Well, everything plays out, and you'll never find yourself in the movement. You'll never find yourself in this and that, in the reprogramming of the brain. It's in the silence of everything, and you're not waking up. The you might think it does, and it is. It will give you, the person, more pleasure if it tells the story that it is. And there's nothing wrong with that, the appearance of pleasure. But you never wake up because you never existed. It's got nothing to do with that body-mind mechanism. That's just the side effects happening in the body-mind mechanism. It's so brilliant, this message. It's so free.
That's true. Very true.
In the person's life, when it's still perceiving itself as something moving through time, and this body-mind mechanism that experiences pleasure and pain, it can be very confusing because it keeps wanting to fix itself. It keeps wanting to fix what's happening.
That background, which is us, which is always here, and that the rest doesn't matter. The rest change is not important.
But it's not even a background, but I know that that's how a lot of people speak about it, but it's just not my particular language. That stillness, that silence, that emptiness is in everything, everywhere. It's not contained as a silent watcher behind. It's in everything, in all the movement. Even if there's a firework going on in front of us, or a massive wild party with dance music, it's so still. It's so empty. It's everywhere. It's not something you can see. And it's in the background as like awareness or watcher or consciousness of a witness. Then that's something that still can be seen. This is everywhere and so still. And that's the total freedom. And the character acts out all the crazy stuff the character acts out. The dramas, the joys, the unhappiness. And what was truly watching or what was truly experiencing was everything, never a person. The person was a play.
I have one question.
Yeah?
If what you're saying to me, if I feel that more when I wear a Rudraksh, you know Rudraksh?
I'm sorry?
Do you know Rudraksha? It's a necklace that they use it for spiritual purposes that makes you to go inwards more. When I wear that, what you say, I'm that. And when I don't wear it, I wore it for 4 months, and now that I don't wear that, I suddenly felt a few days ago when I stopped wearing it, I came back to the physical world and I felt the pain again. I felt this again, and I feel laughter, cry. Everything I started feeling again. So, if I reach there through a Rudraksh, it's not real. It's like, it's not, because it's like a cigarette. It's not the real.
Well, no, that's irrelevant. But the part that in what you said was you feel pain, you feel pleasure. That's never meant to stop. That's meant to be, in a way, the pain and the pleasure becomes more so. When it stops being for someone, it becomes more intense. Like I noticed with my dog, she's such a good example. She's so into everything, and because she's so into everything, the reactions of pain and pleasure are really strong. So when I tell her that she can't do something that she wants to do, so if we're out walking and there is, say, deer or something that she wants to chase, and I tell her she has to sit, and I make her watch it, I see her sitting there, like shaking, because there's so much tension, because the body wants to run and I'm stopping her, so she starts shaking. And you often see this in dogs. When you stop them from doing something they really want to do, their body trembles, and that will be pain. That will be very painful, I imagine. Like, to imagine if you wanted to play on the computer, or you wanted to eat something and someone told you couldn't, and you were so much wanting to do it that your big body began to physically shake, not by a thought, because a dog can't think, but just because the urge to do it is so strong, and the urge to do as you're told is so strong, it actually makes the body convulse. So that is a big amount of pain that will be going through the dog's body. That's more intense than the regular day-to-day pain or pleasure that the human feels, because the separate self is always making experience less so. It makes experience numb.
True.
So actually, when that veil goes, I think that the pain and pleasure becomes more intense. When I feel fear, or when I feel disappointment or rejection or any sensation, it's more so. It's so physical. The other day I had to lie. It was, I have the programming, for some reason, I don't know if it's a side effect of what happened, but I have the programming to be a very, very honest person. Like, honest, not like honest as in I just can't fake a conversation. I can't pretend. It just doesn't happen. And the other day I had to. It was one of those situations where if I were to say the thoughts that were coming up, it would have caused such a drama. It would have really shaken things up. These people never even heard of non-duality. It was very inappropriate. And I sat there and I felt the urge to say it. And then there was another urge which stopped it, and my head began to shake.
Wow.
Like I began to feel what Khaleesi felt. It was so, I had to get up and walk away from the situation. Like, it's so intense. It's like it's a disease, having to be honest in every situation. But so I feel like it's such a, like, pleasure and pain becomes such a physical thing. It becomes so, like I notice, like, sometimes I like to play tricks on my boyfriend, and I like to surprise him. So I like to hide in the bedroom or hide somewhere, and then when he least expects it, jump out and go boo. I just like to, it's really stupid, and I like to hide in really unsuspecting places. So it would be a real shock for him. And then occasionally he does it to me, and when he does it, my whole body shakes. It's like such an intense experience to go through. So I think like these bodies aren't designed not to feel. We begin to imagine enlightenment as not feeling because we associate so much suffering with feeling. The suffering isn't the feeling though, the suffering isn't the experience. The suffering always is that it's happening to you. And whenever there's a you there, there's always a sense of incompletion in every experience. So we look at then the experience, so the experience of feeling fear or jealousy or any normal human feeling, and we look at it and we say, this is wrong, I shouldn't be feeling this, I should be more enlightened, or I need to swap partners, or I need to do something differently. The problem is always that sense of feeling inside the body that you're experiencing something separately, and it always feels like there is a lack there. It's never about the experience. So when you have that necklace on and then you take it off, you feel more. I don't think that's got anything to do necessarily with the collapse of the self. Feeling more is most probably This is talking about an emptiness in that moreness, not a numbness, an emptiness in everything, that all of this, the source, without a doubt, without any question, without it being intellectual, the source of everything is nothing. That this is always home. There's nothing that can be born or destroyed or lost. Everything is made of the same. There is nothing outside of that. This isn't an intellectual remembering. This is the way it is, but that sense of somebody covers it. That sense of being something that's come from the past and going to the future seems to cover that this is all from the same thing. And this is all inherently free. But what happens when waking up is that the brain does put a identification on with bliss and with pleasure, because when waking up happens, there's been such a cage and such a restriction on everything. It releases so many blissful experiences, and it does do something in the brain. This body-mind mechanism feels a lot of bliss, and bliss can sometimes be a bit of a hindrance actually, because if you're sitting there in bliss, then cleaning the house doesn't feel you just sit there. And then everyone comes in and they're like, you still haven't cleaned the house, and you're yeah, I felt really good. Like, bliss isn't always the best emotion or the best sensation to be happening. It's not always very practical. Like, sometimes I find the bliss so strong that I can't physically function. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I'm happy for it to like die down a little bit so I function a bit better. It's not always the most reliable emotion. But it's a side effect that comes when there's been such a restriction, and then the mind associates waking up with that feeling, because it also feels like an expansion. It feels like a relief. It feels like, and then it tries or gets into the story that I'm only free when I experience that, and then it becomes a new cage of the person, and then it kind of suffocates the bliss, and the bliss goes anyway.
So when the bliss is there, it feels free. When the bliss is not there, it feels it needs to have the bliss to be free.
And that's not actually true at all. Bliss is something that moves and comes and goes. It's an experience. It can be felt. And I promise you, nothing that can be felt is freedom. It's so free, because if it was, you could potentially lose it. It's here. If it was bliss, you could potentially lose it, because it comes and goes. It's a sensation. This is something that's so inherent in everything. It's been there with everything and is everything, but it's not based on the pleasure-pain spectrum. But this, even still speakers and teachers are still talking as if bliss is it, because often there is a great, huge movement into bliss. They can actually explain what happens in the brain as to why people that have woken up experience a lot of bliss. It's because something, a part that is too complicated for me to explain now, but it's actually a very, very common side effect, and it's the biggest confusion in spirituality. And I've met teachers that have taught for 20 years, and they were having great bliss, and they thought that was it, and then suddenly they lose the bliss. Sorry?
Can you tell me the confusion? I want to know.
The confusion is that waking up is an experience. That's the confusion. And often that experience is either something intellectual, a feeling. I would say bliss is a feeling, or some form of knowing in the world of the forms. And waking up, or what's being talked about here, is nothing to do with experience. All experiences are coming and going and fleeting. Nothing. So this is nothing intellectual that we're talking about. It's nothing to do with the feelings. It's nothing to do with the perception. But yet it's here inherently in everything. But you can't see that, because you is already moving in time. So this is nothing experiential. But it might even seem that I am talking about something experiential, because it's as if I'm pointing to you. But actually these talks are in complete silence.
That's true. That's true.
These talks have never gone anywhere. It's still the same this.
It's not like this.
And really, I've told you all this information and it's all useless, it's all going nowhere. But the whole time there has been absolute stillness. It's never moved. It's just seemed to move, as if something's happening.
Nothing is changing.
No, ever. No matter what feelings come up, even if you feel angry, joy, bliss, relaxation, even if there's lots of thoughts, a contraction or not a contraction, nothing's ever changed. It just seems to have. And what the person has got lost in is believing they are something which is in that movement. And when they suffer because they try to pin it down, they're always trying. It's like trying to grab onto water. And it's so much effort, and they always are fearing because they feel like they're losing it, I'm losing it. I've only got 20, 30, 40 years more of life to work this out. And the whole time it's been there, hiding in the most obvious place, and nothing was ever lost. Nothing was ever endangered, even in the greatest hell.
So we are that.
Nothing else.
Nothing else. Yeah. Everything is that, and everything comes from that, and everything goes back to that, and nothing else. Everything else changed.
Yeah.
Just that is there and here and everywhere.
Yeah.
And we are that.
And it's not
else.
you that wakes up to it. You never existed. There was never anybody there. Somebody cannot know this or wake up to this. It's not about the change in the brain chemicals. This cannot be a personal thing because all of that is in movement. There can never be an enlightened human, or everything always is inherently enlightened. There's never been anything that wasn't. It's just this person sewn together, making it seem like there's somebody linear, somebody separate.
If I ask, why does these things happen? Like these, why does these separations happen? If I ask why.
I would say that most probably why, in an intellectual reasoning, is most probably the separation, like some speakers like to say, and I think it's a sweet answer, so it can find itself again. And I think that's a sweet answer, but I actually think it's more practical than that. I think it solely was to do with the evolution of the human. I think evolution is a nice explanation for what's happening with objects. They're always about growing, growing, growing. And I like when I like it's like sexual selection and evolution. It really, really fits with what happens in the objects, and the human isn't separate from that. And I think a sense of separation made survival very important and made us very successful. And that's what I only think it was about that. I think it's totally impersonal. I don't even think it's about no thing finding itself again. Although I like that. I like it when people say that. I think it's funny and sweet. I think it's simply that the human body-mind mechanism became more efficient when it believed it existed. When I look at my rabbits, or Khaleesi, the dog, like they are just existing from one moment to another. So they're not storing or holding on or they are being greedy, but in a very limited sense. They're not thinking about tomorrow. But because the human begun language, it then began to think about its body in 10 years' time. We have our whole life mapped out. We have even our pensions. Well, I don't, but most people have pensions. And homes and mortgages, like 30-year mortgages, and jobs for life. So, but most of the animal kingdom doesn't have the ability to think like that. And I think that as soon as we began to be able to think and speak in a more clever way, we had to have something to refer to, and the more that was referred to, the more that grew to feel like somebody. But I think it was just a functioning, just like the grass grows, the sun shines. It was just something that happened in the human. I suspect now that if that doesn't stop, we're going to kill ourselves because we succeeded so well. There's not enough room on this planet if we keep breeding like we do. And if we keep succeeding. Because what it does when that collapse happens is it's not that this is in any way personal, but it makes the character less greedy. Like I'm very, very content with a very basic lifestyle. I mean, I like that I have a home that I don't have to pay a huge mortgage on, or I like all these things, but I'm very content with a very basic lifestyle. It makes absolutely no difference here going to a chippy. I don't know if you have chippies, like a fish and chip shop. Like where you pay £1. Oh no, you won't even be in pounds. Just a very cheap amount of money. Very cheap amount of money for your dinner, as to one where you pay a lot of money for your dinner. I mean, both are experience. It doesn't matter. I have a preference to eat more healthily than chips all the time. I really enjoy chips out of the paper bag. I also enjoy going to a fancy restaurant, but it makes no difference. I have no striving that comes up for that. I like it, and people often buy it for me, and I'm very, very lucky. But actually, in my lifestyle, I don't actually, even if I earn the money, don't spend it, because I don't really have the urges for that. So it makes you less greedy. And it's the same with my boyfriend Paul. He also doesn't have, like, sometimes we have very rich friends that will take us to posh places, and it makes no difference. We go to the chippy and we have dinner in front of the TV, or just on the sofa or in the car. Or we go to like a 5-star restaurant that costs you £500 a meal or something. It's nice, but it really makes absolutely no difference. It's all experiences. I love traveling in India, where I'm eating off the floor. You eat off a leaf on the floor, and I really like it, sitting in a nice chair in a very elegant restaurant. But who cares? So then, because that urge isn't there, then there's no urge to try and strive and get loads for yourself. And I think that is a side effect of waking up. I don't think that's nothing to do with non-duality, but I think it's a side effect that comes in the body-mind mechanism. I'm not positive about that. I haven't met somebody where that's collapsed, a greedy somebody where that's collapsed. But I think that when that waking up happens, then the body-mind mechanism will be very happy with enough. Like, enough is enough. It doesn't need to spend 17 hours a day working to try and get more. Actually, I prefer to sit around more and do less. I remember that story about this Mexican guy that went fishing, and a businessman came along and he'd fish, and then fish for 2 hours in the morning, and the rest of the day he'd sit in the hammock and play and talk with his family on the beach. And a businessman came along and says, "You do so well fishing. If you fished all day for 20 years and sold the fish, you could be a billionaire." And then he says, "And then what would I do?" And he says, "Well, then you would, then you'd have $1 billion to retire." And he says, "What, and do the same that I'm doing, sitting on the beach and playing with my family?" Like, it makes no difference. It's only when there's that sense that you are not enough and that you're something separate that objects become God. And then there has to be that greed. I suspect now, because we survived so well and we're killing ourselves, which we are doing, We are going to kill ourselves if we carry on like this as a human race. It's not even us that's going to kill us. The planet is going to wipe us out if we carry on doing this. It's like we all know it, and we're all like. So I suspect that evolution's doing its dance again, and this collapse is happening. But at the end of the day, we don't know, and that at the end of the day is not relevant for waking up. Waking up isn't intellectual and doesn't need to be thought about. But I, coming from not a scientific background, but having a boyfriend that's very much into science, and when you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, it really makes sense. That's why now non-duality is becoming so widespread. And also in our society, people are getting so much because we're so successful that they're quickly realizing that it's not in the material. Although it surprises me that more don't realize. It's surprising that it surprises me that people manage to carry on living just with the carrot of wealth.
And all these problems come from thoughts?
Sorry?
And all these problems come from thoughts?
Not exactly thoughts. It's like an energetic sense that's happened, but originally it came from language and the ability to think, but then it became an energetic thing. Like anger, you could say, so you think, how dare they do it to me, and then there's a sensation, like an energetic expression of anger. So it's like that repetition, you, or me, has given the energetic sense, and it's actually become an energetic field that's held in every cell that feels like you are this body. But so it didn't exactly, it came, I think, separation came with the possibility for the intellect. So with the intellect, so with the growth of the brain, so when we began to be able to speak, but it's become an energetic thing, this separation. It's not just about thinking. And what can happen is there can be that collapse of separation, and there still can be the use of words, I, and there still could be the appearance of the character, Lisa, but it's no longer an experience or a separate person anymore. It simply is a functioning that's happening. But it does come, it seems, with only with the human brain. I do not see this in any animals. It doesn't. My dog, for sure, doesn't have a sense of self, and the rabbits are way too stupid to have a sense of self. They're so funny. It really makes me chuckle watching them. Like they poop, and then they sit in the poop, and it all gets stuck to their fur, and then as happy as anything. And I'm like, oh, one moment, poop. And then Khaleesi the dog follows them and eats all the poop that they poop. And I'm like, there is no way these animals have any sense of self. One's covered in poop and the other's eating the other's poop. If I could explain to Khaleesi what she was doing, I'm sure she would be embarrassed, but she has no sense of self, so she can't. But, oh, I'm eating someone's poo?
They will give up being a rabbit.
Yeah.
So the yogic practices that makes people powerful to have the reading mind and all of those things are just nothing, because all of them come from nothingness.
Yeah, they're nothing, and also they don't indicate enlightenment. You could have somebody that has that power, and they still believe they're somebody with that power. Often, why when people wake up and they have those experiences, it's like when this begins to reveal itself, these experiences can happen because there's no longer a filter or a containment. So these things can happen, but also these things can happen when there's still a huge sense of self, and they and they think it's them, like they've read someone's mind, Actually, it's a very scientific thing as to what's happening. We have something called, in humans, we have something called mirror neurons. So we have the ability to look at each other and to mirror back what you're feeling. So I can look at you, and it's as if I can feel what you feel. And that's nothing to do with being psychic, it's to do with being human. It's just that when we are deluded by being somebody, we're so there's such an engrossment in that somebody that all these sensitive feelings get covered. It's so engrossed, but it's a very natural thing to be able to read humans. This is what we're meant to do. We have a very large part in our brain put towards mirror neurons. So when you have an expression, this body will feel the same. And also empathy. And some bodies will have larger degrees of it and less, and some will have less. Like women are meant to have more empathy. The leaders of the group are meant to have less. So the ones in charge are meant to have less. And the hunters are meant to have less because they've got to kill the animals. And if they're feeling empathy with the animals, they can't. If they're feeling empathy with their environment, they can't destroy it. But the women are meant to have that, but they're not the ones that are meant to be the hunter. It's amazing as humans how we know so little about it, about what this body mind mechanism is, and they're so beautiful in all their expression, but we take it as such a personal thing. Like if somebody wakes up and then suddenly they have there's more of an awareness of these mirror neurons, suddenly they're psychic or they have these special powers. It's not special powers, it's human. We're amazing creatures. We're so amazing. And we miss it by this contraction, which is always me, 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 me. When it's looked at impersonally, then it's able to express itself. Like often when I'm speaking, I'll say, wow, that's so beautiful. And it's nothing to do with me. It's just what comes out of this body. And it's nothing personal. But it's the same with all the bodies. Like there's nobody that's really psychic, but that's that body's role. And if the body's role is to be the leader with less empathy, in our society we demonize that. And we say, but there's meant to be characters which can do these things, which have less empathy. And we say, oh, he's such a bad person, or she's such a bad person because she did this or that. And we can't understand why she killed an animal or why she didn't have any feelings. But they're meant to be set up like that. We need all different personalities in order to survive. Not all of us can be the killer of animals. It's such a hard job, and that's what we have to do to eat.
True. Like the positive and negative.
Yeah, it's but it's so sad what we do in society now. We hide it away and do terrible things. We wouldn't do such terrible things if it was in the open. We're not set up to be that terrible in the open. In the open, we would balance it out, and if we didn't hide it away, we would have enough characters that have enough empathy to stop it. But because the ones with empathy don't see it, it doesn't get stopped. And it's not enough to watch it on YouTube. It doesn't do enough. We have to see it. So there would be, if we saw an animal being tortured, there would be 100 to 2 humans which would stop it.
Yes.
We're not really like we have this empathy thing. We work as a society, as a community, so we're able to interpret others' pain. So if we saw an animal, what we do to animals is terrible behind closed doors. If we all as a society watched it in person, we would stop it. And the same with sweat clothes. Like all of us wear clothes from sweatshops, but because we can't see it, we can't stop it. We have to see it. And so then the ones that can do it behind closed doors and then make loads of money from it. And it's not that they're bad, it's just they don't have the empathy chemicals to stop it. It's a shame what we can do in mass production.
Yes.
This is why our society will become smaller. It needs to. It's too big. We do too many terrible things as a big organism.
Last one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's nice speaking with you, Nima.
Okay. You said that even when the self is there, it can happen. So that happens, is that can be equal to Kundalini coming up?
But I don't know what you mean. What, the mind reading or the...
The waking up.
No, waking up's got nothing to do with Kundalini. That's all to do with the side effects that can happen, or it's to do with the body-mind mechanism. That's all in experience. That can be a side effect because there's been loads of energy that's been held in by this sense of self, but it's not. That's just the side effects which happen in the body, and it's so different to each body-mind mechanism that you couldn't possibly map it. You couldn't possibly understand it, but it will happen. It's never been the person. So if there's to be massive energetic explosions in the body-mind mechanism, then that will happen. It's never the person that's waking up. That's part of what can happen. It happened here. Massive energetic changes in the body. But it's not something you can know, and it's not something you can map. Some people do, and it has been mapped in the past, but I think this is arrogance, to be honest. I think it's so unique to each body-mind mechanism.
Wow, that's true.
And I think that's just the mind saying, this is what it's like for me, so this is what it'll be like for others. And that's not the case. It's so unique, because if you've got a body-mind mechanism that's programmed in a specific way and is already very energetic in experiencing, then it's not going to have such a big energetic awakening. If you've got one that's really repressed of its feelings and feels very numb, then it will more than likely have a bigger one. It's so different. But it all happens by itself. You don't need to know the roadmap. You were never anything to do with anything. You was a chemical reaction happening. It's like the sun asking, how do I burn, or how do I get a bigger explosion, or will I get a bigger explosion? It will happen.
It's just the way it is. It cannot change.
No. And it's all happening on its own chord. When it's really seen that nothing is the orchestra, there's nobody that's controlling anything, and it's all perfect timing.
And then we read the pages that the chakras are like this and the Kundalini like this, and it doesn't make sense because it's not meant for this moment.
No. And it's just a description of their experience. And their experience is that particular unique body-mind mechanism that will never be repeated again.
Wow, that's true.
But it's really, I like some of the stuff that they say, like, with the chakras, I always have a sense that is where the sense of self resides. Like, they have these different points, and it's like the sense of self does move between them, and you have like senses of self that are more in the groin, senses of self that are more in the heart. So I understand where they come from, but they're not a roadmap. There's no roadmap. Life is so unique and diverse in its expression.
Yes. Even they themselves didn't have a roadmap, and they experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, and then they wrote it down as if that was the way for everyone else, and it's then putting another jacket on other people. The way it's seen here is that non-duality, the speaking of non-duality is enough, and then everything else, it will happen. And it's going to be confusing, and it's going to see dark times and light times, the sense of self, but eventually it will get exposed, and it will see it was all a perfect play. It was like the music, and then in the middle of the music the notes saying, but hang on, which one comes next? At which point will I... It will happen.
Yeah, that's true. You don't need any roadmaps.
No. But the person, when it feels scared, it wants to then map it out. So then it thinks, okay, this is my next step, or this is what happens. But the fear will pass, like everything. And even if the person maps it out, then that's what it does. But that will too pass, and then the next moment you'll be drinking your orange juice or feeding the dog, and you'll have forgotten all about waking up or anything. It will simply be as it is.
That's by its own.
Mm-hmm. All of it, everything. Just like the wind, just like the sunlight. This has always been effortless. Even with the effort that the person's put in, it's always been happening on it by itself. The trees grow, the wind blows, the sun shines, the computer, the room, everything is here, everything is. It's only the separate person that's saying, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. What a lie. I need to know, I need to know. It only wants to know because it's afraid. And that's okay, you could pretend.
The person is so retarded.
Yeah. Even though we're the most intelligent animals that we know of yet, it still is very simple.
The person is the most retarded and he says, I created the computer.
Yeah.
I created the world. You're the most retarded. You didn't create anything. Everything was created before you come. Wow. Wow. There's nothing else to talk about.
And the amazing thing is that talking will still happen. Like, yeah, there's nothing to talk about. Me and Paul, my boyfriend, we always say, yeah, we've got nothing left to talk about. And we spend hours talking every day and we're like... Nice. Oh, it was lovely speaking with you again, Nima. Really nice.
Thank you so much for everything.
Oh, my pleasure.
Take care. Bye.
Hey, Phyllis. I am not sure if the house faces north or east. I will ask Paul. I was trying to work it out by the sun, but I can't. I've had lots of people asking to ask questions, but I think we're out of time now. So you're more than welcome to call back next Wednesday. This Sunday, I won't be doing a stream at 6 o'clock. I'll be doing the stream, I think 3 in the afternoon, because I'll be doing a live talk, but I'll stream it. So you can join. And I don't think I'll take any questions, but you're more than welcome to join. I'll put that on my website. You can see the talk on my website, actually. If you go to the talk, so it'll be the afternoon session that I'll broadcast. Is there anything else to talk about? I don't think so. Okay, guys, thank you. Bye.